Can you tell me about your bread recipe?
No. Pinch of this.
How much of your day was spent just feeding all those kids?
Just beating?
Feeding.
Oh, feeding.
Well, both.
I think it's easier for me at that time than it is for people now. Now, when they have a baby and take it someplace, they take half the house with them. They have to take a carrier and a crib and toys and everything else.
Sure.
But we never had all that. Ruth Hodick, born July 4th, 1920. Elizabeth Soblik, Wences Hodick. I was born in Ross, North Dakota. 5 brothers and 4 sisters. Eugenia, Jean, Roman, Ewald, Emery, Nora, Grace, Neon, Alfred, and Irene. I'm the middle. We had our arguments, of course, but I know Emery and I were fighting about one thing. I don't know what it was. And I ran into the house and I slammed the door, and he went to hold the door open so he could catch me, broke the glass and cut his hand. But I don't remember the results, but I'm sure I paid for it. And I remember one Christmas, I don't know how old I was, but we were running around the house, of course, and we had a real Christmas tree and had candles, that were lit. And I don't know who it was, which one of us knocked the tree over. But other than that, it was okay. I mean, I don't know if the candles were lit or not, but that was in that house of solders that we used to live in. I went to school only 6 years of my life. I made 2 grades, and 1 year twice. I graduated with an 8th grade diploma. Well, my dad ran an elevator, grain elevator, so we never had, I don't even remember the first car we had. Well, we must have had a car. I know I had whooping cough when I was 5 or 6 years old. And I remember when we went someplace, you coughed till you threw up. When I threw I don't suppose we had handkerchiefs, I suppose it was just a rag. Threw it out. And the window was so clean, I threw it into the window. Of course, Dad was very unhappy because it was a new car. The elevator burned, and my dad was a traveling salesman. He sold, at that time it was McNess products. It was like Watkins or any of that. And a lot of people didn't have money, so they'd pay with chickens or geese or ducks or whatever. So we always had good stuff to eat that way. But I remember we had cows, because I remember we had the dog trained to go and get the cows. But that was when I was just real little. I know that Tiberts had horses in a sleigh they farmed. And we went to Minto on the sleigh, and he was working, he and his sister Eva were working in a cafe, taking care of it while they were away. and that was, we went over there. That's the usual hang of Minto. And, but a month later he came to Voss because he hired out to Tybert's. And he was sitting on their freezers were flat, and he was sitting on that. I mean, that was in the store, solder store. And after he left, he and Steve Stolpen worked together, and they came into Voss. And I worked in the post office, which was in solder store. And of course, after he left, well, who was that guy? We never saw him before. And here it was him. But that was a month after. Well, I saw him in the cafe, but I had no idea who he was. But I never remember people anyway. I have to see him a lot of times before I remember him. Well, I know we always used to meet in Voss. See, Eddie Sauter lived about a mile out. He was a neighbor of Bud Tybert's. So Bud and Steve and Bill used to come to Voss, and Walter Marcinek, and just a bunch of us, and we just, well, what do kids do? We were what? That was in 35, I was 15 years old. And we kind of paired off because there was enormous Oblick was my cousin. They lived across the road, so we were just like living in the same house because either they were at our place or we were at their place. And so I always paired off with him. And that just kept on from there. He just said he had something to ask me, and then he was shy about asking, I guess, and finally he did. I kept at him till, well, what do you want to know? So, no, I wasn't afraid. I was happy. I was only 17. October 26th, 1937. No, he worked for Armin Narlock, hauling gravel when we lived on McCann's. He worked for Biernaby's in a potato house. When he got a full week's pay, the check was $20-some, $30 at the very most. That's all. And he used to, during the winter, he'd walk to Voss. It was a mile from Voss. But then I don't remember just when we moved into Voss. She was little, 5 pounds and 6 ounces. But I suppose she would have been in an incubator if I'd been in the hospital. But she was fine. But she was born in Minto. Of course, I was scared the first one. And I don't know, Dr. Hardy was just across the street from us. But when he came over, well, I don't know how long I was in labor. It wasn't very long. But she was small, and I was too, of course. I know in the afternoon I wasn't feeling good. My mother was with me. And then she was born, well, sometime before midnight, because she was born on the 29th. And that's something that they don't believe, I guess. I should know. In Bismarck, they had her record as 28th. And I just crossed it out when I got the birth certificate. I crossed out 28 and wrote 29, but they didn't accept that. They still say 28. So all her papers, like her Social Security and all that, it's still 28. So legally, she is 28. But I know it isn't right. So then when she was baptized, the priest put on there on the baptismal papers. I don't remember just what he said, but when they went to get her baptismal papers, it was on there and it was the wrong day, so we always say she has 3 birthdays. So. Well, Jean was born September 3rd, 1939, and he was born on a farm at a mile from Voss, because we lived in Voss at that time. But his birth was real easy. An hour from the time the doctor came, he was on his way home. He was already born. He was good, but he didn't talk till he was 3 years old, but now you couldn't shut him up when he started talking. And then Donnie was born in February of 2 years apart, so that'd be 41. Donnie was the one that was sickly, and he was the biggest one. He weighed 8 pounds and 1 ounce. But the formula didn't agree with him, and he weighed less when he was 3 months old than when he was born. But when we finally got him on the right formula, then he's made up for it ever since. Yeah, he was born in Voss. Ardell was in, what did I say, Donnie was born when? 39, so Fort Donnie was 41. So your dad would have been 39. And Donnie, or Ardell, Dennis was born in 50. He was born 6 years after. Ardell was fine. And Donnie had the chicken pox when Ardell was born, and Ardell had 1 chicken pox on his forehead. And then Dennis was born in the, well, that's what, he was born in 50. And the doctor didn't even get to the hospital in time, my own doctor. But there was a doctor in the hospital, so he was at the birth instead of Dr. Hardy. So it was easy. I always said I'd rather have 10 kids than to have 1 bout of gout. That was more painful. The grandkids would be Tammy, Tommy, Mike and Leanne, Mark, and then you, Kelly, and you, and then Diane, Karen, and Nancy. Oh, at one time I said I would never move from Voss, because at that time we had a lot of neighbors, and got along real well. But when we had to move to Voss after Grandpa got sick, well then different ones asked if I was moving back to Voss after he died. I said there was no way I'd move back there. I had lots of good neighbors and friends. I wouldn't want to name them because which one would you name first?
Sure.
I have a lot of good friends. I like my church family real well. They've all been very good to me. Well, everybody has. I really don't have any enemies. If there's any secret, do unto others as you would that others do to you, I guess. But I'm sure I paid for it. But I don't.
You know what I forgot to get? Milk. Can you believe me forgetting that?
You'll have to go back.